Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra Lourenco, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. I am not a licensed therapist, psychologist, or coach. All information I share here comes from personal experience and doesn't mean to replace any kind of professional help. So today we're going to talk about overthinking. It's a theme very close to my heart, and so it felt just right to start with this one on the second season. So, what is overthinking? Pretty much self-explanatory, but it's basically not being able to stop yourself from thinking. So it's basically a compulsion, okay? Most people with a tendency for overthinking can even think about several different topics at the same time. Think about a computer running various programs at the same time. Think about your web browser with various tabs open. So basically, it's like that. In many senses, our brains are indeed like computers, right? So we each have different specs that can be compared to standard computers, if you think about it. So you have your short-term memory, that can be the RAM, storage space, that can be long-term memory, and even processors in the computers, CPUs or GPUs, can be compared to our brain's ability to process information. So computers with better RAMs and processors can process more information at the same time. That is, you can have all these different programs running simultaneously, and they'll work, and the computer will work them all out. And just like some of us are better at multitasking than others, right? Some computers are better at multitasking than others. It all depends on the specs, right? Some computers can store more information than others, just like some of us have better memories than others. Still, like computers, we each have our limits, right? Our brains have limits. But just like we do to our computers, we have a tendency to push our limits as well, right?
It's over 9,000!
No matter how great your computer is, no matter how great your brain is, there's always a time when we push its limits. And the more it can handle, the better it is, the more we demand from it, right? But unlike computers, our brains are capable of growth. We have this amazing skill as human beings of being able to actually upgrade ourselves. We are born with defined specs, for sure, okay, defined by our genes, but some of us just have natural skills. Some of us are born with a natural tendency of being better at some of these specs, right? Some of us have to work more at it. The truth is that the more we challenge our brains, the more they develop and upgrade themselves. There are many studies that already confirm the impact of some activities in the development of new neuron pathways, and hence increasing the ability of the brain that's needed for that specific activity. The brain is also one of the organs of the human body with better regeneration skills. There are many cases of people who had their brains badly injured or even a part of their brains removed, and then the brain just grows again. It's just like a lizard's tail. How awesome is this? So if you think about it, it's only natural that the tendency for overthinking happens more and more. As technology evolves, as our society moves at a faster pace, we are consistently being more and more stimulated. We have TVs, radios, smartphones, smartwatches. We are always reachable, always online, always receiving notifications, calls, texts, emails. Most people live or work in big cities and big organizations, so they're always having their senses overloaded. There are noises, there are smells, there are unwanted touches in crowded spaces, a constant need to be alert, being to traffic or other dangers, like, I don't know, can be robbers, you have to watch your stuff, or you have to worry about being on time and missing the next train. So every time I look around, I see people being subject to these stimuli. And I'm saying I'm looking at people. Of course, I'm also being subject to this, but sometimes it's easier for us to watch other people, right? And sometimes I even see parents allowing babies and small children to watch noisy, annoying, and colorful videos on smartphones. So movies and overall the entertaining industry, everything is becoming more and more fast-paced so that people don't get bored watching this entertainment. And if you want proof, just go watch a movie from the 50s and then watch one movie from nowadays. I'm sure you'll see what I mean. The music, the overall action, the way people talk, everything is faster. You have a lot more stimulation nowadays. And same thing about music, especially mainstream music. We are getting, there were the loud wars back in the thousands in the mixes, that mixes had to be louder and louder and louder so that they can overcome the senses. And it was considered that louder was better. Brains being bombarded with constant information develop amazing skills, almost superpower like. But just like every superpower, it can be used for good or evil, right? And what's the difference between superheroes and villains? Most people would say that superheroes are the good guys or gals that use their superpowers for good, while villains are bad people that use their superpowers for evil. I am not a big fan of this definition because it is based on an assumption that people are good or bad. So how do I distinguish superheroes from villains? Well, for me, superheroes are the ones who manage to control their superpowers.
What is control?
If we wanted, we could shut these machines down.
They did the work. They learned how to turn them on and off, and they can even regulate their intensity as it's necessary. Villains, on the other hand, are controlled by their own superpowers. They can't turn them off, and so they are actually victims if you think about it.
You.
Yes, me. Me too.
So, how does this apply to compulsive thinking? Attention disorder is a form of compulsive thinking. Schizophrenia is an extreme form of compulsive thinking, as all alienations from reality are in one way or another. Some people are just slaves to their thoughts, and they can't even tell the difference between their thoughts and the physical reality they are in. They have very active brains. They get addicted to their superpower, and eventually they get lost in it. And it all started with overthinking. And sorry if I scared you. Thing is, compulsive thinking is so normalized nowadays that most people don't see it for what it really is. But it's a form of addiction. And yeah, it's just an addiction like smoking, drinking alcohol, gambling, or whatever. Think about it. At first, it's fun. Then you can't stop it. Even though you know it's ruining your life and it's not being productive, some people get so lost in their own addictions that they lose track of reality. And that's because addictions are vicious cycles. And in case of overthinking, the more information our brains are capable of handling, the more they want to handle. They become addicted to information, addicted to the processing of the information. If you have a very active mind, when you're thinking about something, you immediately can access so much information that you get an overload of mental information. You spend a lot of energy thinking. I don't know if you know this, but thinking, and especially making decisions, consumes a lot of energy. So it's just normal that if you have a tendency for overthinking, you also have a tendency of feeling constantly tired or drained. And then when you recover your energy back by eating or sleeping, your mind gets back on hyper mode, and there you go again. So I started learning about this back in 2016 when I was starting to build my music career. Even though I know and I recognize now I always have a tendency for overthinking. I always had a very active brain. I think growing up as an only child, I relied a lot on my imagination to play games and to imagine scenarios and role playing. And so it's just normal that I stimulated that part of my brain more growing up. But especially when I was starting in building my music career, there were so many options. There was so much information, so many things that I thought I needed to do or learn, that many times I got stuck on analysis paralysis, which is a form of compulsive thinking. It's basically a pattern that you start overanalyzing and you start overlearning, and you become the eternal student. You always think that you always need to learn more and more and more, and you feel like you're never ready to get to concrete action. And so you get stuck on analysis paralysis. You spend all your energy thinking, and then you never get to action. You never act. And this was basically one of the patterns and one of the vicious cycles and one of my past addictions. So good thing was that my interest in personal growth also started out just about the same time. It's kind of like something inside me knew that for me to be successful as an artist, I also needed to grow up as a person and as a human being. So I do feel like that's the first step, identifying what's happening. And once you understand how overthinking actually works, you stop blaming yourself for getting stuck and for feeling so tired, because it's not that you're lazy or unmotivated. It's just that your mind activity is draining yourself out, okay? And is distracting you, just like any addiction. It's stealing the life, it's sucking the life out of you. For me, it's important to understand the process and its dynamics. It's the basis I use to get to a solution. And as any addiction, regaining control requires time, patience, tolerance, forgiveness, and most of all, awareness. So far, we can already conclude that if you can find a way out of overthinking, you can free up energy for other activities and be more productive as a result. Also, I can guarantee that most of your problems that you think are problems will start solving themselves, and you will get to a solution a lot faster, because many people, they think overthinking is necessary. And the less I overthink, the easier I solve my problems. Most of our problems are just in our heads, are just caused for overthinking, because this actually feeds the addiction, okay? So, we already talked about what overthinking is, where it comes from, how it works, and how I started becoming aware of how much this issue affected my life. So, many people, they choose to replace one form of addiction with another. One example of this is medication. There are nicotine pills for smoking, and there are mind-numbing pills for compulsive thinking and all their other compulsive forms. There's a pill for everything nowadays. So don't get me wrong, okay? Some people are so lost in their addiction that, in fact, they do require medication to at least regain basic awareness, to step out of that almost dreamlike state. People who suffer from schizophrenia are examples of this, of course. But in my opinion, medication doesn't fix anything, okay? it does open a temporary window where the person regains consciousness, but then the person needs to practice and learn to control their addiction and their tendencies. Otherwise, they'll just become addicted to a different kind of drug, and that over time will lose its benefic effect. So this is called actually a therapeutic window in conventional medicine. That's a really interesting term if you want to search about it. And what happens is that during that window, or you regain control and you start managing your addiction or whatever it is in a conscious way, or you just need to replace the pill with a more potent pill because the previous one no longer works, and so on. So basically, you replace one addiction with another.
The drug's not working.
Let's talk about how to overcome and learn to control overthinking with 5 different methods that worked like a charm for me. Again, these are all suggestions based on my experience and what works out and worked out for me, okay? If you need personalized help, please always seek out a professional, okay? So let's start with the first method to overcome overthinking. And it is train being aware of when you're doing it. So it's easy to identify overthinking when you're not stuck in the mental process of doing it, right? For example, when you've drained all your energy and just feel too tired to keep thinking, then you look at the clock and think, oh my gosh, did I just spend like 2 hours in my head? So the challenge is to catch yourself in the process of doing it, okay? Practice doing breaks from thinking from time to time, okay? Put an alarm on your phone, a reminder on your calendar, for example, saying, hey, are you overthinking right now? Remember, this is a learning process, okay? It gets easier and you'll start catching yourself sooner and sooner. Once you catch yourself overthinking, force yourself to do something else, okay? Action is the best way to go at it, okay? So it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it forces you to pay attention to what you're doing. So you can go wash your dishes. You can go walk your dog. You can do physical exercise. I don't care what it is, but go do something. When you're doing something, your mind needs to pay attention and will not roam free. And try also to do this consciously, because I know if you have, the more powerful your brain is, the more you can multitask and the more you can do other kinds of actions and still be overthinking at the same time. Okay, so try to pay full attention into what you're doing. Imagine that you're doing surgery and that someone's life is on the line. Imagine that you're doing a very dangerous activity. That's one of the reasons many people are addicted to adrenaline and dangerous activities, is that this kind of activities forces you to pay full attention to what you're doing and gets you out of your own head. So just you don't have to do dangerous activities, okay? You can just pretend, use your imagination, use your machine to pretend that you're in danger or something, so you can pay full attention into what you're doing. This method has 2 advantages. First, it gets you out of your head and you'll also get things done, which is great. So, second method to overcome overthinking, schedule the time for overthinking as well. And I know it sounds silly, all right? If you're trying to stop something, why on earth would you schedule time for it? So we already mentioned that we are dealing with a form of addiction, okay? And as with any addiction, we know we probably won't be able to stop it overnight. It requires, it's a work of time and patience, okay? So let's start by reducing the amount of time that you spend per day overthinking, okay? At first, try to see how much time per day do you spend overthinking, okay? Try to, you can do 15 minutes now and then 30 minutes later. Try to see how much time per day on average you spend overthinking. And then make a plan to reduce that time over time. For example, you calendarize that for the next week, you'll spend 2 hours per day overthinking, no more, no less. So you have a 2 hour per day. You spend 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there. And when you get to the 2 hours, no more overthinking for the day. If you catch yourself overthinking off the schedule, use the first method, go do something. All right. And then on the second week, you can reduce the 2 hours for 1 hour and a half, and so on. Forgive yourself when you sleep, because you will sleep, you will catch yourself overthinking, you will go over time. Okay, it will happen, just like with any addiction. Okay, just try to catch yourself more and more, and try to distract yourself more and more, and focus on a specific action, one day at a time. Don't be too rough on yourself. Okay, laugh yourself out. Don't get angry, don't get mad. Laugh it out. Sense of humor is the best thing you can do. Okay, don't be too rough. Okay. Third method, schedule action as well. Like we mentioned before, if you're busy acting, you're not stuck in your head, but please avoid multitasking. Multitasking is a disease of nowadays. It's just because our brains are becoming so much more capable that we have a tendency and to think that we can do everything at once. Thing is, on that sense, our brains are not like a computer. Our brains can do something with a lot more quality if they are focused on one task at a time. Okay, so you will notice if you start acting consciously, you will notice that whatever you are doing, okay, it will have such a great quality to it. I will give you guys an example. I always hated cooking. I never enjoyed cooking, but I learned to cook out of necessity. I was living alone. I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't afford to go to eat out or buy cooked food. Okay, so I learned how to cook, but it was always a pain. I never enjoyed cooking, even though people actually appreciated my cooking, and so I wasn't doing such a bad job, but I didn't like it. So I was kind of forcing myself to do it. And as I started this work of paying more attention to what I was doing, I started practicing in everything I do, even cooking. So I started paying a lot more attention while cooking. I started, just doing everything consciously. And every time I noticed the difference, it's not that like the taste is different. If you cook, sometimes things just work out better than others. And I'm a very intuitive cooking. I usually don't follow recipes. I do my own thing. And I just noticed that my cooking was getting better and better. And when I was eating, I was actually thinking, oh, wow, did I do this? This is actually pretty good. And so it's amazing. It's like you can taste, you can feel the difference in the quality of what you do if you pay full attention to what you're doing. And it's not that I don't have disasters in the kitchen. Of course, I still have disasters in the kitchen. Of course, I still have bad days. But I usually notice that happens when I get distracted. When I'm paying attention, usually things go out pretty well. Okay. So fourth method. When thinking, impose yourself. So when you're thinking, imagine that you are on the scheduled time for overthinking, impose yourself a theme to think about and try to stay on topic. Why is this? Because I was about to say most overthinkers, but I don't like to use the expression overthinkers. It's just because I don't want you to see yourself as an overthinker. Don't identify yourself with your addiction. Right? First thing they do, if you go to AAs or something, you see in movies. Luckily, I never had to deal with one of those addictions, but we see it in movies all the time. And they say, my name is, I don't know, something, and I'm a alcoholic. I don't agree with this. I understand why they do it. They do it because they want them to face their addiction, because many addicts like to say that they are not addicts. I'm not an addict, maybe So it's just normal that they try to incute that responsibility. They try to make that the person face themselves and face their addiction. But that also causes you to identify with your addiction, and you are not your addiction, okay? So I would never say that I am an overthinker. I would say, and I still say sometimes because it's true, I have a tendency to overthink, and it's different. If you say that you are an overthinker, you are saying that you are overthinking, that you are your superpower. So just say that you have that superpower. This way it's something that you have, but it's not who you are. Okay? So if you have a tendency to overthink, you also have usually a tendency to stray away from the topic that you were thinking in the first place. So practice focusing yourself on a specific theme or a specific part of your project or problem, whatever you are thinking, okay? And even if you're thinking about a big project or a problem, don't forget that every project or problem has its steps, okay? So focus on the step at hand, okay? If you get distracted by another thought, and it can be, of course, a song or Rick Ashley rickrolling you in your head, force yourself to get back to the team at hand as soon as you gain awareness. So as soon as you, oh my gosh, that I'm not supposed to be thinking about this. Okay, let's go back to the topic. Okay, so far, I've only talked about methods to basically direct your attention so you can get out of your own head and on to action, okay? The fifth method that I'm about to present may be a little harder, maybe a bit more outside of the box. Maybe you have a personal opinion about it, but that's just because it's meant to slow down your mind so it doesn't need to be distracted. It also raises your level of awareness so you can be able to catch yourself faster when stuck in these mental loops. I'm talking about meditation. Please don't turn off the video. Stay with me. Don't deny a science that you still don't recognize, okay? Let me talk to you about meditation. Maybe you've tried meditating before and it didn't work out for you. Maybe you think there's no purpose to it. Maybe you think it's not your thing. Trust me, I've heard all these excuses before. Why? Because that's what I used to say about meditation. But the more I read about personal growth, the more I saw different authors, many people saying wonders about meditation. So I just decided, I just know this isn't for me, but everyone is talking about it. All right, I'll try it out. So truth is, there are many different kinds of meditation, okay? If you're thinking blank meditation, monks sitting in the lotus position with their eyes semi-closed for hours, of course, you're setting yourself for failure. Okay, it's just like trying to play Mozart in a piano at first try. Of course, you won't be able to do it. Your mind will get distracted. You'll get frustrated. So, meditation is a learning process. Okay, you don't get it right. You don't get it wrong. You practice it. So, no one plays an instrument as they would like to at first try. But you don't quit just because of that, right? Because you realize that's the way it is. You start slowly and simply. And the same with meditation. You start with only 1 or 2 minutes. Try to not think about anything for 1 minute. If you are prone to overthinking, that's a huge challenge. I challenge you to do that. And if you cannot do a blank meditation, which is a meditation with no stimuli at all, just being there in silence with your eyes closed and not thinking, not speaking, not anything, if that's too much for you, and it can be starting out, do a guided meditation. What is guided meditation? Is a meditation with someone talking or even a video. There are meditations with videos, okay? The goal is to focus all your attention on what you're listening or seeing. Okay? Empty your mind.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
Release all thoughts that come It's easier at first if you have something to focus upon. And that's why I recommend guided meditation first, okay? Start with that. Then with practice, you can start increasing the time. You can start going from 1 or 2 minutes to 5 minutes, then 8, then 10, and so on. And you can also start reducing the level of input you need. So go from guided meditation to just background meditation music or chants, and then nothing. That's the advanced kind of meditation. I started meditating also 6 years ago, and now I can say there's no wonder why so many people recommend meditation. And I've been seeing its effects over time, and in my case, it not only calmed my mind, it allowed me to be okay just being still and not doing anything or thinking anything. It stopped a compulsive habit of biting the skin around my nails, which is called dermatophagia. You can search for it online. It's an addiction I had since I can remember, ever since I was a kid. I never remember not doing it. But now you can see my fingers. I have absolutely nothing. This is something I'm really proud of. In this kind of addiction is actually connected with anxiety and attention disorders, which are other symptoms of overthinking. So it also freed me for headaches, and so on. And so it's meditation. It's all about raising your awareness and calming your mind from this constant stimuli addiction that we're subject to all the time. Okay. Another thing is that you can practice meditation everywhere. If you think about it, you don't have to be on a calm environment. Actually, distractions should be welcomed. Okay, let's take this a level up with more difficulty, and let's see if I can stay with an empty mind around a noisy environment. That's kind of like pro level. So, for instance, next time you're stuck in traffic or waiting in a line for something, try to empty your mind. And you can start that by paying attention to your senses, to what's happening around you. Give your full attention to what's happening around you, but don't focus on anything in particular. If a thought crosses your mind, and it will, okay, or if you start looking at someone and start judging the person or start thinking, just release the thought. Don't pay attention. Let it go and return to the exercise, just looking around, paying attention without making judgments, without thinking much of anything. Okay. Because this happens, if you suddenly remember something important that you think, that you should do, just write it on your calendar, on your phone, schedule a reminder for later. Okay. But then get back to the exercise. Don't interrupt the exercise because suddenly you remember something very important. Whatever it is, it can wait 5 minutes, okay? Some things cannot wait 5 minutes, but you'll be the judge of that. So meditation is like training your mind to be comfortable not thinking and not being subject to external stimuli. You'll increase your level of focus, and anything you do or think will actually become much clearer and alive. You'll learn to appreciate everything a lot more because you are not distracted thinking about other stuff. So that's all for today. I hope this episode was helpful to you. And as always, feel free to comment, like, share, reach out, and all that. Okay? See you on the next week. Bye-bye.